I expended the empty shell casing from the mechanism, tossing it in a basket behind me. I let Jessica out and she rejoined her classmates, who immediately swamped her with questions and concerns. I repeated the process 18 more times, each girl getting the chance to unleash a shell to the joy of the crowd. Each time I asked them a question, deliberately avoiding a particular student when doing so. The boys carried on doing their usual thing in the background as I carried out my lesson, checking their own gear and making sure their tanks were not sinking into the dirt on the range too much, occasionally moving their vehicles to a new spot. Finally we came to Amalia, a high elf girl who had the best score of any student in school. Just as she was about to enter the Matilda, I stopped her. "Am I not allowed to fire the gun, sir? Is something wrong?" she asked, pouting. "Nah. You're just the best student here, therefore you get the bigger gun. Come, the Sturmgeschütz is waiting." I patted her head and directed her to the Stoogie. The boys also mounted up, with myself in the loader's seat, Brother Boris in the driver's seat and Brother Lowe on the commander's seat. I helped Amalia in the gunner's seat and let her figure her way around it. "Squad ready," I barked. "Engine on," Brother Boris yelled. "Panzer vor," Brother Lowe yelled in response. The Stoogie charged off the platform and onto the dirt track, where we did a short obstacle course in record time. Amalia and I both stuck our heads out of the cupolas above the tank, and she squealed with glee as we charged our way through the course. Splashing mud and roaring engines did not dissuade her from having the time of her life as we trundled at a good lick through the freshly rained-on course. She was having the time of her life and she deserved it. After about 5 minutes or so, we got around to the actual firing range part of the course and I headed back into my loader's seat. I showed her the mechanism, demonstrated with a fake shell for how it worked and set the empty casing aside. I showed her how to aim it and showed her the target. Just as I was about to load a shell, she stopped everything. Wait. This is too good. I have to," she yelled, stopping everything. "Are you okay?" I asked as she moved out of the seat back out of the cupola. She mockingly shuffled herself out of the cupola and deliberately moved herself so her butt got stuck in it a bit. "Ooh, help me step tank. I'm Stoogie," she said with a new face and cheekily putting her pinky to her cheek. A watching crowd face slapped and all of us burst into laughter from it. I half laughed, half cringed as this elven lady pulled one of the silliest jokes in the tank world. She giggled to herself and wriggled back inside as the crowd laughed with applause at the funny. Needless to say, with the laughing crowd, her giggling classmates and chuckling police nearby, she got extra credit for that. She squeezed herself back into the cupola, onto the seat and back into the gun position. She had to wait a bit while we got ourselves back together, either from nearly dying by cringe in the case of Brother Boris or laughter in the case of Brother Lowe. Eventually we got ourselves back together and I watched carefully as she loaded the shell. "Live shell loaded," she yelled out. Brother Lowe began his signature command in Polish. "TRZY. Dwa. Jeden. Kawa." The 75mm cannon fired, the blast several times louder and more pronounced than the Matilda's 2-pounder gun, the shockwave larger and more vicious. The cabin reverberated with the impact, and I quickly grabbed the expended shell casing. I didn't give Amalia much time to respond as I tapped her on the shoulder to get her attention as I loaded and readied another shell. She was breathing heavily and shaking, but like a trooper she soldiered on and fired another shell, this one actually hitting one of the targets we had on display. The hidden tannerite under the targets detonated and created a nice boom on the side of the hill. I loaded and made Amalia fire 6 more shells, destroying 3 more targets before finally saying bingo shells, and forcing us to return to the range where everyone was waiting. As soon as we came to a full stop, the tank's engine off, Amalia jumped out of the tank, nearly stumbling and charged into her waiting classmates' excited cheers and hugs. They learned something, and knew that lessons were learned, parsons inflamed, extra credit earned. Best field trip ever. A smile seemed to reach his eyes then, crinkling their corners. Good, we got a smart one this time. He paused, as if to let me take in the weight of that statement. Now, you will talk me through the security protocols of the camps on Selikoth, and provide me the necessary codes for your transport's arrival. Then, we'll see how generous I'm feeling about POWs.